Hello, all you beautiful souls. I'm your host, Samantha, and this is the Sage Witch Mooncast. Today, we're going to be talking about altars. An altar is a sacred space. It's where we focus our energies and our intentions. Our altars are reflections of both the cosmos and ourselves. When we create an altar, a sacred space, we are making room for the spiritual in the physical. As witches, our altars are usually the focal points of our practices. An altar is a space where we dwell. Now, dwelling is much different than ruminating. When we dwell, we are simply staying a while. But when we ruminate, we become fixated on a thought, and often a negative thought. How we think creates how we dwell, and how we dwell creates how we think. And at our altars, this cycle can happen. Altars can be permanent or change with the seasons or even the months. They can be just a few items or carefully curated collections. It really all depends on the witch. I think many of us, especially those who are new to witchcraft, get caught up in how the altar should look, and with some good reason. How our altars look can signal to us that it is spiritual time, and help us to switch our focus from the mundane to the spiritual. Aside from where we practice magic, our altars are a place where we stop, even if just for a moment, to connect to the cosmos and ourselves. Ask yourselves, how often do you just stop? How often are you just still, doing nothing in particular? One of a witch's greatest strengths is to be in touch with themselves and grounded in who they are. By spending time, even just a few moments a day at your altar, you can foster that connection with yourself and become comfortable in stillness. You'll notice if you go on social media or search the internet for altar inspirations, you will get hundreds, maybe even thousands of images of altars full of crystals, statues, flowers, and so on. And they really are breathtaking. But what's important to remember about those altars are they are usually set up in a way so that they can advertise something. Maybe it's the crystals, or the incense, or even the person themselves. Whatever it is, someone has taken the time to painstakingly curate that photograph to look the way that it does. The lighting is just so. The picture is often heavily edited, and some of the items can cost a pretty penny. It's important to remember your altar does not have to look like those altars to be valid. You don't have to go broke creating your altar. Be inspired, but not pressured. Some of the most beautiful altars I've ever seen have been made from items someone picked up during their adventures in nature. Sacred spaces have been found all over the world and have been used since humanity began contemplating their place in the cosmos. They can be groves, caves, or even simply rocks. These places are where humanity learned to commune with the spiritual aspects of their lives. I was recently listening to a TED Talk from the architect Philip DeFara, who shared some great wisdom on creating sacred spaces. In his studies, he learned that ancient civilizations understood the importance of communal sacred spaces and those spaces would be built directly into their cities. They weren't churches per se, but areas where everyone could come by themselves or communally with others to recognize, contemplate, and appreciate their culture spiritually. Unfortunately, with modern thinking and invention, those spaces are all but lost. They're no longer built into the actual structures of our cities. DeFara suggests that if you do not have any public spaces near you, that you should create one. A simple bench overlooking the sea can be a sacred space to observe nature and to reflect, or perhaps stacking rocks on a hiking trail. Our sacred spaces do not have to be grand to have an impact. Of course, always make sure what you do won't get you in trouble. In his TED Talk, he discussed the importance of hold-ons in relation to spirituality. How the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual all need one another, not only to exist, but to also thrive. All of these things are able to exist independently, sure, but ultimately are a part of a bigger whole. When we create an altar, we're going from flat thinking, or thinking only on a singular or limited point of view or goal, and we're elevating ourselves to these other levels of existence. So what do you do at an altar? There are a lot of videos and books out there that talk about what to put on an altar, how to set it up, and how to use it. But there aren't many that talk about the purpose of the altar itself. And as you well know, I am oftentimes more interested in the why than the how. Some things I do at my altar might be obvious. Guided meditations, spell work, and the like. But before I even knew of these things, I would simply and naturally just dwell there. At first, I would probably spend a few moments reflecting on my day. Then I would allow myself to become lost in my own senses, observing the candle flame, smelling the incense, and listening to the music. Sometimes the best thing you can do at your altar is nothing. Just be there and be present. As the blessed late Thich Nhat Hanh said, dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. Our altars are where we create, or better yet, where we transform energy into intentions. As I said before, our sacred spaces are reflections of the cosmos, and from the vast cosmos itself comes creation. When we work at our altars, whether it be spells or simply meditating, we are transforming what is already there. While we cannot create something from nothing, humans can be masters at transformation. Moving on, let's talk about one of the most common questions I get. How do I make my altar? One thing I find very important about altars is not so much the end result, but the making of the space itself. When I make my sacred space, I usually begin with a deep cleaning of the designated area. I will first cleanse it physically, removing all dirt and debris from the area. After I'm done cleaning, I will cleanse it mentally and spiritually, usually through smoke, herbal sprays, or whatever else I might be feeling that day. Then I will set the space up itself, making sure everything I put on the space is cleansed in the same manner. When I'm done setting it up, I will bless it, or I'll begin consecrating it to align to my intention at the time. I do this through meditation and creative visualization. I might even use smoke from a special incense I've chosen to bathe my altar space in. As I've said before, what you choose to put on your altar is entirely up to you. If you follow a specific path, there are usually some kind of guidelines on what goes where and how to erect one. But if you do not, if you consider yourself something of a secular witch as I do, it's up to you. Ask yourself, what speaks to you? What objects do you own that evoke feelings of peace, calm, and magic? One rule of thumb, should you need one, is to find an object for each of the elements. You can have a crystal for earth, a candle for fire, incense for air, and perhaps a shell or dish of water for water. But what about the fifth element, you ask? What about spirit? Spirit lies in the empty space. Spirit can create something from nothing and dwells within that empty space. For me personally, and as a minimalist, I like to have an abundance of empty space on my altar. One reason is it makes it that much easier to clean. As I've said before, I live on a farm and it gets really dusty, and keeping my altar clean of dust and free of dust can be challenging to say the least. I also feel that having too much on one altar can create conflicting energies and can lead to confusion. It can be hard to determine your will and to keep focus of it if you are bombarded with distractions. I like to keep my intentions clear mentally, emotionally, and physically so I can dedicate my energy to that goal. I realize that this doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay. Some of you might still be in the broom closet, or maybe you're just not ready to share your path with others. This can make having an altar difficult, if not impossible. In this case, you might just set a candle on a shelf, maybe add a crystal or different elements from nature like pine cones or sea glass. Simple altars like this are just as valid as the more ornate ones. What matters most is that you have a dedicated space to hold that energy for you and to be a focal point for your path. As with almost anything, altars require maintenance. So how do you maintain your altar? And that really, again, depends on how often you wish to change it and how often you clean that space. Some people don't clean their altars very often and feel that by cleaning it you are like disposing of energies that have collected there, whereas there are people like me who feel that an altar should be cleansed and refreshed and refocused every so often. I tend to deep clean my space on the new moon. Over the next few weeks, I will spend time at my altar, dedicating and consecrating it with my current intentions. And come the next new moon, I will start all over again. Our intentions change as our needs change. Perhaps one month, I might be working on self-love. Maybe the next month, I'll be working on gratitude. I decide each moon cycle what it is I would like to work on and set that intention at my altar. And I will sit and I will contemplate that intention for that moon cycle. gathering that energy, contemplating, and focusing on that goal. You may find that over time, how your altar is set up no longer works for you. Perhaps you've grown spiritually and wish to represent that growth in your spiritual space. Unless you follow a specific tradition that dictates how your altar should look, you can feel free to arrange your altar in a way that speaks to you. I have had many different altars in my life, and as I grew and changed, so did my altar, as again, it is a reflection of myself. So that is about all I have for today. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to contact me on social media at The Sage Witch, or you can also reach out to me at my website, thesagewitch.wordpress.com. I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I wish you the best of all seasons.